But me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to Free Agency Frenzy here on the Louie T Network live. So, a lot of transactions taking place. None will be official until the start of the new league year on Wednesday. But as we know, over the last about 5 years or so, we've seen the tampering period, that 48-hour tampering period begin. Teams talking to agents and really getting deals in place well before the start of free agency. So we pretty much know everything that's going to take place. And once Wednesday comes, we'll start to see these deals actually take place, these press conferences to introduce these players to their new locations. And so it's a great time of year. Everyone has a chance. Every team looking to improve themselves, even if it's only from a cap situation and they're not actually active in free agency, but looking to just get their cap situation under control. So obviously, if you don't have a lot of money to spend, you're not going to be as active, i.e. the Saints and teams like that who don't have a lot of money to spend right now won't be as active, but teams that have been hoarding their money or don't have a lot of quality football players, this time of the year, they're looking to turn over their roster. New management, new coaching staff will also be big in teams being active. You want to get guys in that fit what you do best and what you exemplify and what you feel like fits fill in the blank team under this coach's tutelage. So you're seeing a lot of teams like the Lions, like the Raiders, who are reshaping their roster and organization. You're seeing these teams start to build their team the way that they think it should look with a new head coach and new front office personnel. So this is going to be an interesting process, to say the least. We're only really about 24 to 48 hours into this thing, and yet a ton of guys have changed teams and have inked deals, and a lot of money being shelled out. The salary cap has been upped to $188 million, a little bit over $188 million. So a lot of money being shelled out, and I know a lot of you like to make a lot out of these numbers. Just remember that these numbers aren't always what they appear to be. A lot of the numbers are show for these agents. You know, it looks great that Landon Collins got a 6-year, $84 million deal, but when you get into the minutia and the fine details, the granular details of these contracts, you'll find that most of them aren't exactly what they appear to be. The agents love to give out these really huge numbers, and they look great on paper and they sound great to say, but again, once you get into the granular details, and I'll allow you fans of these specific teams to get into the granular details, I'm just going to give you the numbers that are just spit out by everyone talking about these deals. But again, you can go and do your own research and homework to find out where these deals actually have a cutoff point at, where are the exit ramps, how much guaranteed money is actually being given out, how are these deals spread out amongst the years and the life of the deal. Is it really a 5-year deal or is it really a 2-year deal? And what are the ramifications cap-wise of these deals? I'm going to let you guys do that. I'm just going to give you the numbers that are thrown out as we go through this process. So let's get to free agency frenzy, shall we? And we start with the biggest position and the biggest free agent acquisition. We knew this was coming. I've talked about this on my podcast about a month ago. And then, you know what? It's crazy. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. I'm going to go back because I love being right. I'm going to go back and look and listen. I could have sworn I threw out this arbitrary number for Nicholas Foles, who inked a deal in Jacksonville or is going to ink a deal. None of these are official. Keep that in mind. Maybe one or two of them. If a guy is legitimately a free agent, has already been cut, he can sign his deal immediately. But if you're coming from another team to sign with another team, your contract isn't technically up until the new league year starts, so you can't sign with another team. So some of these deals, like the Eric Weddle deal, that's official. Like the Carlos Hyde deal, that's official. Some of these other deals, not so much. So anyway, I said on my podcast that Nicholas Foles was going to sign. I said because of the new tampering rules in the NFL, you're going to hear about Nicholas Foles landing a 4-year, $88 million deal. And I think I threw that out there, some crazy numbers. I might have been spot on. I got to go back and listen. I'm not sure if I actually threw out the right numbers or not. I could have sworn I said 4 years, $88 million. And then after I said it, I said, that sounds kind of light. I might have been spot on. Anyway, $88 million for Nicholas Foles in Jacksonville, 50 of it guaranteed. And with incentives, it could be pushed up to $102 million. We'll see what happens in Jacksonville with Nicholas Foles. I've always contended that Nicholas Foles is a really good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. I think he was in the perfect location for his skill set in Philly. As we've seen, he hasn't been great anywhere else but Philly. And so he's been in Kansas City. He's been in with St. Louis at the time with the Rams. I get it. Jeff Fisher was his coach and yada, yada, yada. We're going to find out. We're going to find out just how good Nicholas Foles really is, because now he's not in Philadelphia and he's got some company. He's got a guy that he trusts and knows in John DeFilippo as the coordinator there. Hopefully things work out great for Nicholas Foles. I'm rooting for him. I like the guy, and I think that's a team that's ready to win now. You insert Nicholas Foles, and we'll see if they can't get back to where they were 2017 instead of what the mess and train wreck we saw in 2018. And I think that actually spells the end of the line in Jacksonville for one Blake Bortles. CJ Uzomah is back in Cincinnati on a 3-year, $18 million deal. I like CJ Uzomah. They've had a bunch of tight ends come through there. The guy that they really wanted to stay healthy in Tyler Eifert hasn't been able to do so. And so guys like CJ Uzomah and Tyler Kroft have had to step up and make plays. Speaking of which, Tyler Kroft also signed elsewhere. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Uzomah staying put in Cincinnati on a 3-year, $18 million deal. Trey Flowers to sign with the Lions on a deal that could potentially net him $16 to $17 million per year. Look, you can connect the dots here. Matt Patricia is loading up on as many expatriates as he can get his hands on. We know how this goes. When you have guys that you know can get it done and that you trust, you want to implement what you have done elsewhere that has worked, i.e. the Patriot way. You're trying to ship that and package it up and take it with you to Detroit. You need guys that can help you execute it, and that's what they're doing right now, trying to acquire as much talent as they can. And it just also happens that this talent also has had some time in New England. So not surprising that Trey Flowers, who's young, going into his second contract, into the prime of his career, going to get paid by the Lions, who is coached by Matt Patricia, ex-disciple of Bill Belichick. Hopefully year 2 in Detroit is much better for Patricia than year 1 was, and they're hoping a guy like Trey Flowers comes in and helps with that process. Jamison Crowder, JC Ice, as he's known in DC, or as I know him, is now going to be a New York Jet. 3 years, $28.5 million for JC Ice, 17 million of it guaranteed upon signing. Good for him. He's a really good wide receiver, when healthy, one of the best slots in all of football. And I knew the Redskins weren't going to look to match what he was going to get on the market, and he deserves to be paid. He's been a quality receiver for us for quite some time, and injuries have marred his production over the last couple of years, especially last year, but that doesn't diminish what this guy has been in DC and how good he's been since pretty much day one. He's been our most consistent receiver when healthy, and he's getting paid as such. Titans and Kenny Vaccaro agree on a 4-year, $26 million deal. Remember, Vaccaro was let go by the Saints last year, signed a $1.5 million deal with the Titans to prove that he could play in this league. It worked out for him. He remains a Titan, and of that deal, $11.5 million of it is guaranteed. So the Titans and Kenny Vaccaro agree to stay together for at least the foreseeable, let's call it 2 years, in Tennessee. Lions agree with Danny Amendola, ex-Patriot Danny Amendola. Yeah, he was in Miami last year, but again, you see where I'm going with this. Connect the dots, ... He's in Detroit, and Detroit was very active in free agency, or has been active thus far, Again, nothing official, but they've been extremely active to this point. 1 year, $4.5 million deal with escalators. This thing could get up to $5.75 million for Danny Amendola. Devin Funchess on a 1 year, $13 million prove-it deal in Indy. What happened to the good old-fashioned 1 year, $5 million prove-it deal? Or the 1 year, $4.5 million prove-it deal? Whatever happened to that? All right. Guys are getting 1 year, $13 million prove-it deals. And at that, it's Devin Funchess. Now, you know what? I shouldn't say that as if Devin Funchess is some bum. He's not. He's actually a quality football player. But again, he's a quality football player. I don't know if Devin Funchess is a true difference maker, and he's getting $13 million to prove that he can play. Whatever happened to $5 million to prove you can play? Yikes! Anyway, I think he'll immediately step in and be the best number 2 receiver that the Colts have. And they've got like number 2, 3, 4 receivers on their roster. He'll step in and immediately be the best number 2 they got. So now T.Y. Hilton might actually have some help. And his help may not be a tight end in Easy E. So we'll see what happens. I can tell you this much. They've done a lot of things in Indy. None of them have been to solidify the number 2 position at receiver. I guess they've tried, like Anthony Dorsett and some of the other guys they've brought in, but this looks and feels legit if it works. And Funchess, when healthy, can be a true help to an offense. I like his size. That's something Andrew Luck really hasn't had in Indy. And so we'll see what he's able to do for the Colts offense in 2019. 1 year, $13 million prove-it deal for Funchess in Indy. Tyrann Mathieu to sign a 3-year, $42 million deal in Kansas City with the Chiefs. And look, I told you that the market was set with Landon Collins, $14 million per deal, and everybody's going to look to get 14 or better. And so 3 divided by 42, for those of you a little mathematically challenged, that's 14 per, folks. So and I wasn't surprised when I saw it, and I heard the Texans had offered him 9.5, and he looked at that 9.5 and he laughed, and he said, "You better come better than that." And that was before Landon Collins even got 14. So we knew everybody was going to. And Earl, I told you what Earl said. Earl wants to be the highest paid. And when Earl saw that deal, Earl said, "I better get 15 then." So someone's going to have to break Earl off. I don't know who that is going to be. Good luck. You're going to need it signing him. But in the meantime, the Chiefs just got exponentially better in their secondary. Now imagine with Eric Berry finally getting healthy this offseason and Tyrann Mathieu opposite of him, that secondary just got immensely better. Now you're going to start to see some of these other players like a Kendall Fuller, who I think had to do a little too much last year with that secondary being a little bit banged up. He's going to be able to shine a little bit better than he was, and he's going to be a lot more comfortable in KC in year 2. You're going to start to see that defense take shape. Again, I want to see what happens with D Ford. I want to see what they do in the draft, because if you have no D Ford, you already got rid of Justin Houston. Who do you have rushing the quarterback? I need answers. So, again, the secondary can improve, but if there's no pass rush, those guys could still struggle. But this is a big move for the Chiefs, nonetheless, adding Tyrann Mathieu to their team on a 3-year, $42 million deal. Buster screen to the Bears, which probably signals the end of Bryce Callahan in Chicago. Redskins. Bryce Callahan is now potentially available. We need a slot. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, I really like Bryce. Nonetheless, anyway, Buster Screen, a really quality football player. And so he'll be in Chicago, and we'll see if he can help bolster what is already one of the best defenses in all of the National Football League. Mike Davis, a guy that I really liked in Seattle, now going to add to the Bears mix at the running back position. You know what this says to me? And I may be reaching here, and I may be reading too much into this, and maybe the tea leaves aren't even here. However, what this says to me is Jordan Howard, bam, might be gone. I just think that the Bears, they tried to move him last year, low-key tried to move him. It didn't work. We heard rumblings and grumblings this offseason that Jordan Howard could be had. I just got an eerie feeling they are not all that happy with the production they're getting out of Jordan Howard. They think they can upgrade that. We've heard the Adrian Peterson rumors in Chicago potentially. I just feel like they think that they can do better than Jordan Howard, and I'm not gonna disagree with them. And Mike Davis isn't a bad option to start. So we'll see what happens. That's a 2-year, $7 million deal, $6 million in terms of the base, and it could get to or $6 million total. It could get to $7 million with incentives. But good for Mike Davis. I like him, and his hard work has finally paid off for him. The Bills to sign Mitch Morse, and this one came in as a whopper. I think it's 4 years, $44 million, and I think 26 and a half of it is guaranteed for Mitch Morse. That was a guy that I told you I thought the Redskins should be interested in, but at that price tag, probably not. And so that's, hey, look, the Bills need all of the interior offensive line help they can get. Remember, earlier in the offseason, they inked ex-Redskin, ex-Jet. I forgot the name of the offensive lineman. That's terrible because he used to play for the Redskins. It'll come to me. But it's a guy that I really like as a deal earlier in the offseason. Now they add Mitch Morse to the mix. They need all. Remember, they had that one offseason where the interior of their offensive line was ravaged. Eric Wood retired. Richie Incognito left. And then another guy in there was gone. And then, last year they traded away their left tackle to the Bengals. So they just needed to repair their offensive line. And so you look at the Dawkins kid that got out of Temple. You add in the free agent that they got earlier in the offseason. And you add in Mitch Morse now. And they're starting to shape and form an offensive line that will do a much better job of protecting Josh Allen than the one that they put in front of him last year that was very, very fraudulent. Adam Humphries is a guy that I thought really had a breakout season last year, and I really like him. One of those unsung guys. He looks the part of a guy that's going to be in this league for quite some time. And I think Hunter Renfrow, who is also, coincidentally enough, from Clemson, just like Humphries was from Clemson, is going to come in and probably do the exact same thing Humphries has done in his career. All of Humphries' hard work in Tampa finally paying off as he inks a 4-year, $36 million deal to become a Tennessee Titan. Good for him. The guy catches just about everything, and he is a reliable option in the slot. And the Titans are looking to surround Marcus Mariota with all the talent that they can. We know about what Corey Davis is starting to blossom into. I still think they need a legit number 2 wide receiver. I wouldn't be opposed to drafting one if I'm the Titans. I thought they were trying to go all in on the A.B. deal. They bowed out of that. Maybe it was the right thing to do, but I think they could definitely use a real number 2. But we'll see what they decide to do. But Humphries is a legit number 3 option, and he's being paid as such. 4 years, $36 million. T-Sizzle to sign potentially in Arizona. That breaks my heart. I really wanted to see him finish up in Baltimore, but we know these stories generally don't end with happy endings. He'll go back to Baltimore. They'll retire his jersey. He'll be in the Hall of Fame, all that good stuff. And no hard feelings here. It just was time, I guess. But I thought that somehow, some way, they would work something out. Similar to Eric Weddle, I thought he'd find a way to make his way back to Baltimore. But Ozzy's not there, and it's amazing that this organization just seems to be doing some things that are out of character. But I got to keep telling myself, Ozzy isn't there anymore. This is all brand new. And because Ozzy isn't there, maybe some of these moves are being made. And if he was there, some of these moves wouldn't be made. Like C.J. Mosley potentially wouldn't be a unrestricted free agent. But nonetheless, Terrell Suggs, his time is up in Baltimore. And I think he's still got something left in the tank. Like I said, if they can use him in Arizona like the Carolina Panthers used J-Pap, and I talked about this on my podcast, then you could have something with T-Sizzle. I don't think that tank is completely empty. And so it'll be interesting to see what the deal looks like. It may be a 1-year deal in Arizona, and what it looks like and what they're asking T-Sizzle to do in that defense. Where am I? There I am. Tyler Kroft. I talked about him earlier and how he was very productive in Cincinnati when healthy. Wasn't very healthy last year, but when healthy. But nobody was healthy in Cincinnati last year. Anyway, when healthy, he's been really productive, and he's had to be because the other Tyler wasn't. He had to be the Tyler that delivered for them. And because of his efforts, he's getting a 3-year, $18.75 million deal that could climb to $21 million with incentives in Buffalo. And the Bills, again, much like the Jets and some of these other teams with young quarterbacks, looking to surround their quarterback with talent. Tyler Kroft, I like him a lot. I think he can do some things from a pass-catching standpoint. Also can block a little bit in the run game. And so he brings something to the table that the Bills have lacked. And that's the ability to have guys that can change the game. And I'm not saying that he's going to go out and dissect NFL defenses or put up 100-yard performances, but Tyler Kroft is more than capable of moving the sticks and getting chunk plays in the offense for the Buffalo Bills. And I like this move to add another piece to that Bills puzzle. Forever Frank is back at it. That's why he's Forever Frank. He's not going away. And so 1-year deal to stay in the AFC East. This time he is a Buffalo Bill. 1 year, $2 million deal for Forever Frank. I've got an eerie feeling that this is it for Frank, though. This is his last go-round. But if Frank somehow magically rushes for 750 yards and still looks like the same old Forever Frank, maybe he'll get another 1-year deal with the New England Patriots next year, of all teams. I mean, he's making his way around the entire AFC East. Who's next? Jets? Patriots? I don't know. We'll see. But first things first, he's got to take care of this 1-year, $2 million deal in Buffalo. Bobby Hart stays in Cincinnati on a 3-year, $21 million deal. Good for Bobby Hart because this man is absolutely trash. And the fact that the Bengals gave him a 3-year, $21 million extension essentially is beyond me. I'm happy for him. Get your bread, bro. You know, I root for every player, no matter how big or how small the talent. I root for everybody to get their money, man. I don't discriminate, player hate on any of these dudes. Go be great. If somebody's going to pay you to be mediocre, goddamn it, be the best mediocre player you can be. And Bobby Hart, by gosh, goddamn it, he's doing exactly that in Cincinnati, and they're rewarding him for being one of the worst offensive tackles in football. Good for you, Bobby. Get your bread. Landon Collins to the Redskins. We talked about that on a separate video, so I'm not going to harp on that here. 6 years, $84 million, 45 of it guaranteed. And so we'll just move on. Lions to ink Justin Coleman to a 4-year, $36 million deal. Pry him away from the Seattle Seahawks. And that deal, once pen is put to paper, will make Justin Coleman the highest paid slot corner, nickel corner, you call him whatever you want, third cornerback in this league in NFL history. So good for Justin Coleman. He's played some quality football out in Seattle, and now he's being rewarded for his efforts. And again, you're starting to see these nickels get paid. This position is becoming more and more important each and every single year in the National Football League as teams start to spread you out and go 3 wide receivers. It's not uncommon to see teams have to start the game out in nickel personnel because of the team putting 3 or 4 receivers out on the football field. So these slot corners, these nickel guys are becoming of the utmost importance, and you're seeing that in a guy like Justin Coleman being broken off. Quan Alexander, again, the Lions being extremely busy and active in free agency. Quan Alexander to sign with the San Francisco 49ers on a 4-year, $54 million deal. Quan Alexander, when healthy, is a baller, okay? And $27 million of that will be guaranteed to Quan Alexander. And again, when he's healthy, among one of the better inside linebackers in all of football. And so he's a guy that can definitely play the position of linebacker, and good to see him get broken off as well. Jason Peters to remain in Philadelphia on a 1-year restructured deal to keep him in Philly. The cap number was going to be a little too high for the Eagles, so they restructured, and he's going to remain a Philadelphia Eagle. Trent Brown, I talked about him on my podcast. I asked the question, would he be a day 1 signee? We got our answer as the Raiders look to make Trent Brown the highest paid tackle. Amazing enough. But again, don't allow the numbers to wow you. And when you hear someone say he's going to be the highest paid in NFL history at his position, just know the money goes up every year. This is what's going to happen. The next guy is the highest guy. Remember that. If you don't remember anything else, the next guy is the highest guy. That's how it goes in this league. Trent Brown, 4 years, $66 million, 36.75 of it guaranteed. Highest paid offensive tackle per year in NFL history. Remember when Trent Brown, and you know what I'm starting to realize too? These big, massive, long, humongous paws, tackles that come into the league are being very successful nowadays. When Trent Brown came out of Florida, I looked at him, I said, he is an absolute mess. He's huge. He's like damn near 400 pounds. He can't move. Yep, he's long, and if he gets his hands on you, you're in trouble. But he can't move. And he went to San Francisco. He was okay. He wasn't great. He goes to New England, and he lights it up and turns that into a massive deal with the Raiders. And you saw the same thing. Remember, we killed Orlando Brown last year for what he did at the Combine. We was like, oh, my God, he was so trash in the Combine. Big, sloppy, overweight, can't bench. Oh, man, he's going to get killed at the next level. He was awesome for the Raiders last year. I'm just saying these dudes, they're coming in and they're acclimating themselves very, very well, despite being somewhat overweight. Their length and their ability to just do enough is getting them by. And this will allow the Raiders. A lot of people talked about A.B. to the Raiders and how the offensive line isn't great. And Carr is running for his life, and we know Derek Carr doesn't want to get hit. What is he going to do? Well, this kind of helps them if, in fact, Trent Brown is as good as he was in New England. And this is going to allow them to fix two positions with one move because they're taking Brown. They're going to make him their new left tackle. And their first-round pick last year in Colton Miller, who I thought was really a right tackle, is going to move from left tackle to right tackle. And presumably, you've just fixed two positions with one move. So the Raiders could have just gotten exponentially better along their offensive line with this move to sign Trent Brown. Spencer Pulley to remain with the Giants on a 3-year, $9.6 million deal. He was with the Chargers in 2017, played all 16 games, then was with the Giants last year, started about 9 games or so. So we'll see what Spencer Pulley does and if he's able to help the Giants moving forward as a starter or if he just helps provide them with depth. Malik Jackson goes to Philly on a 3-year, $30 million deal. The ex-Jacksonville Jaguars defensive tackle probably going to come inside and replace a guy like Michael Bennett, who looks like he's going to be on his way out of Philly. And so also who's another guy on his way out of Philly. I talked about this on the podcast. I believe I talked about this on the podcast. The Eagles made their restricted free agent unrestricted by not tendering him in the ex-Baltimore Raven, Timmy Jernigan. And so they needed some help inside on the interior of their defensive line. And Malik Jackson is going to give them exactly what they're looking for at that position. Dante Fowler Jr., 1 year, $14 million prove-it deal to stay in Los Angeles. Small sample size with the Rams last year, was highly active. Not a lot of stats and production, but he was all over the football field, and they want to see more from Dante Fowler Jr. And I think it's a good fit for the Rams, and he'll stay there for an additional year. This looks eerily similar to the Ndamukong Suh deal last year, the 1 year, $14 million they gave him. Now Suh's looking for work elsewhere. I surmise that the same thing will happen with Fowler Jr. next year. He'll play, whether it's well or not, he'll most likely be looking for work elsewhere. Rams have been really smart to not give long-term deals to some of these guys and instead renting them for a year or two at a time to keep the cap flexibility there. And so this will come off the books, and it's almost like a franchise tag. I talked about Suh's deal last year being essentially another franchise tag. This is essentially the same thing here with Dante Fowler Jr. Raiders hold on to Jonathan Hankins, a guy that they signed last year. to a 2-year deal extension to keep him in Oakland. So Raiders, very active. Among some of the teams that have been extremely active, the Raiders are atop that list. We know about the deal to get A.B. and some of the moves that they've made. They traded away Kelechi Osemele. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So the Raiders wheeling and dealing, man, and at times even stealing like they did A.B. And so another deal for the Raiders as they continue to try to bolster this defense and this roster overall. Carlos Hyde on a 1-year, $2.8 million deal to become a Kansas City Chief. And look, man, Williams looked damn good last year. And I've always been a Williams fan at the running back position. And I always thought Damian could catch it well. I just didn't know he could run it as well as he did last year with the Chiefs. And so now they bring in a guy like Carlos Hyde to back him up, to give them a little bit more depth and fill out that running back room. And it's a really good move for the Chiefs here. This is their new Spencer Ware, if you will, and I think he'll fit in well in Kansas City, will Carlos Hyde. Dwayne Allen stays in the AFC East and becomes a Miami Dolphin on a 2-year, $7 million deal. Guy can block very well, one of the better blocking tight ends in football, and now he can catch it. He's not bad at catching the football, just doesn't get a lot of passes thrown his way. I surmise that in Miami, he'll get more passes thrown his way. We'll see what he does with the opportunity. Eric Weddle, as I talked about earlier, signs a 2-year, $12.5 million deal to join the Los Angeles Rams. At this point of his career, he wants to win a chip. He's made no bones about that. He had talked about retirement if he didn't stay in Baltimore. Well, this gives him a chance to try to win with the Rams. You hear reports about other teams being interested, like the Atlanta Falcons, looking for a veteran presence in that secondary, but he chose the team that was in the Super Bowl a year ago in the Los Angeles Rams, and we'll see what Eric Weddle is able to bring to that Rams defense. Denzel Perryman to stay with the Chargers on a 2-year deal. Young, good linebacker out of the University of Miami, has played well for the Chargers since being drafted, and they're going to keep him as a homegrown talent in L.A. with the Chargers. D-Jax back in Philly. I never wanted to see this happen, but I knew it was a possibility, and the guy can still fly. And he never wanted to leave Philly. Let's make that abundantly clear. He never wanted to leave. He was forced out of Philadelphia by Chip, the Chipster. And he wanted back, and his feelings were hurt. That's why he went to D.C. He didn't go to Washington because he wanted to be a Redskin. He didn't go to Washington because he thought he could win there legitimately. He went to Washington because he wanted to stick it to the Eagles. And he got somewhat of a semblance of revenge when the Redskins clinched the division in Philadelphia in 2015. He was ecstatic about that, but he never really got the revenge he was looking for. And really, at the end of the day, he was like a scorned girlfriend. You know, he was always checking out all of her posts and, you know, always looking and trolling and kind of stalking on social media, following her and seeing what the hell she was up to. And now he found out that she was available, and he slid right into the DMs, and here he is back in the fold. And he wanted to be an Eagle, and it's good to see him back in Philadelphia. But if you're a Redskins fan like myself, no, it's not good to see him back in Philly. But this is where he belongs, to be honest with you. And Carson Wentz is going to get him the football. He's going to be a problem in Philadelphia once again. And shit, I'm not happy to say that he's going to be there. And the deal to get him back in Philly, it was a trade, keep in mind. And so the Buccaneers received a 6th-round pick in 2019 from the Eagles and a 2020 7th-round pick additionally from the Eagles in this deal. And D-Jax gets a 3-year, $27 million deal from the Eagles upon coming over in the deal. So everybody's happy there. I'm upset about him not staying in Tampa, though. I really felt like the quarterback whisperer was going to get in his ear and actually get D-Jax to stay. And they need a deep threat like him in Tampa Bay for Jameis Winston. And I just thought somehow, some way, Bruce Arians was going to get him to stay. I was wrong. He's not staying in Tampa. And my worst fears were confirmed. He's going back to Philly. We'll see what the hell happens there. Lions to sign tight end Jesse James away from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, Lions, one of the most active players in free agency to this point. Kareem Jackson to land in Denver on a 3-year, $33 million deal with 23 of it guaranteed. Bradley Roby is on his way out of Denver. They need a number 2 corner in Denver. Kareem Jackson going to slide right into that role and hopefully play it well for the Denver Broncos. Jets to sign linebacker Anthony Barr and turn him into an edge rusher. If you recall, when Anthony Barr was selected by the Minnesota Vikings, he was an edge rusher, a guy that doubled as an edge rusher and really more so was a pass rusher in college at UCLA, more so than a stand-up outside linebacker. He's going to get a chance to rush with the Jets, and I'm anxious to see how this goes because I thought Anthony Barr had some juice. I didn't think he had any moves, okay? He was not a prolific pass rusher in terms of hand usage and spin and hard outside back. He didn't have a plethora, an array of moves. But what he did have was pure, unadulterated spin off the edge. Now he's going to get a chance to put that to the test. I'm anxious to see what it looks like because a lot of people compared, if you remember back to that draft in 2014, it was Khalil Mack, it was Clowney, and it was Anthony Barr. Those were the 3 guys that you thought could rush the quarterback, and Anthony Barr was the one guy that got pulled off the line of scrimmage. And really it was Khalil Mack and Anthony Barr that were kind of comparisons like, are you going to stand these guys up? Because we saw Mack had a little bit of athleticism at the combine, and there were questions as to whether teams would stand him up. And I'm like, man, you don't let this guy put his hand in the dirt and let him rush. That's what he does best. Meanwhile, Barr was pulled off the line of scrimmage and asked to stand up. He wasn't bad at it, but I'm anxious to see what he does as a pass rusher. So he's going to get a chance, most likely, in New York to be a rusher. Terms of that deal undisclosed at the moment. Jets traded for Kelechi Osemele from the Raiders. And so that's a deal that I think benefits both teams. Kelechi Osemele's welcome was worn out in Oakland. Time for him to go. Remember, that deal was consummated before the new regime came in. So you get Michael Mayock in there as your new GM. John Gruden was already trying to clean house. It just feels like a move that they were ready to make happen. And so it does. Jets need all the help they can get along an offensive line that has struggled over the years. Not saying that Kelechi Osemele is playing his best football right now, but maybe a change of scenery is what he needs to play some of the football we saw him play back in Baltimore and less of what he was in Oakland. And finally, LaMarcus Joyner on a 4-year deal to the Raiders. The Oakland Raiders being major players in free agency, despite a report that they are a little low on funds. And we all know that to be the case. Mark Davis doesn't have a bunch of money. However, they're not bashful in free agency right now as they are getting it done, adding a quality defender, a safety and a nickel in the form of LaMarcus Joyner. Remember, he was on a franchise tag last year with the Rams. He's going to be in Oakland on a 4-year deal. So those are all the deals that I'm aware of at this moment. If any break while we're live, I'm trusting that you guys will inform me. But in any event, let's get to some of your comments. Got a super chat for $20, and I really appreciate that from my man Ricky L, man. Really appreciate it, Rick. Hopefully your move is going well. I'm still in the process, and it is going well. But you know how moving is. It's a process. And so we're going through that right now. He says, or went well. Much respect, brother. Hashtag Lab Room Fam. I really appreciate that, Rick. I really, really do. As we move on, let's get to the top and get to some of your comments. Remember, if you want your comment read and this is your first time here, first of all, subscribe and welcome to the Louie T Network. Also, make sure that you use the hashtag LouieTLive if you want your comment read on the air, if it is pertinent. If you're just commenting amongst the group in the chat, feel free to leave the hashtag out of it and just have the conversation in the chat discussion box. But if you want your comment read, use the hashtag LouieTLive. And also make sure that you subscribe to the Louie T Network podcast, available on Stitcher, iTunes, Google Music Play, TuneIn, and of course the website LouieTNetwork.net. With that being said, what up, Sam Dog? JP says, huge day for free agency, especially for my Skins. I don't think we're done yet either. I don't as well. Seems like they're hot on the trail of CJ Mosley. Seems like the Jets, who have way more bread than we do, wants him pretty damn bad. So I'd say, if I had to guess, now we've got something the Jets don't have. A bunch of Alabama players that CJ Mosley is familiar and probably friends with. However, all of that is fine and dandy, but money talks, as I said earlier, bullshit walks. If the Jets, who have, again, let me state this, much more money available than we do, if the Jets come with that bread, man, if they back up the Brinks, there's not much we can do about that. So we'll see what happens. In any event, moving right along. JP says, you think we could get LaMarcus Joyner? He's in Oakland. Sorry, we missed out on that one. Ali Side says, Raiders currently have 5 defensive tackles. I don't think they will target Quinnen Williams. I don't think so either, because I was having a conversation with one of my best friends who happens to be a Raiders fan, and we talked about that very thing. And he said, we don't need Quinnen Williams. He said, what I really want is Nick Bosa. He knows he's not getting Bosa because Bosa's not slipping past 2. I said, look, man, your best bet is probably going to be Josh Allen. And I'd really support that move, because I'd look at it like this. I think 2 quarterbacks are going in the top 3 picks. I know that sounds crazy, but I think the Jets are trading out of 3. I think someone's coming up to get a quarterback. Will it be Locke? Will it be Haskins? Probably Haskins. But nonetheless, 2 quarterbacks are going in the first 3 picks, and that will allow a guy like Josh Allen to fall in the lap, especially with Anthony Barr being signed. I think that's why the Jets signed Anthony Barr to be an edge rusher, because they want the flexibility to trade out of 3. They don't want to feel the pressure of saying, we don't have anybody off the edge. We probably have to stay here. Even though teams are offering us some tremendous deals, we got to stay here and take Josh Allen, even though you don't have to with other guys available, like a Montez Sweat in this draft, for instance. However, to take that pressure off of them, you get Anthony Barr in free agency, spend a little bit of that money, and now that gives you the ability, if you want to trade out of 3, allow a hungry team, a thirsty team to come up in front of Oakland, who may be in the market for trading back, for a team that's thirsty for a quarterback potentially. Who's to say? You want to get in front of the Raiders just to make sure? You get your quarterback, and that'll allow the Raiders to get a guy like Josh Allen. I just don't see them. Remember, they're hurting. They're reeling off of the trading of Khalil Mack. They needed an edge rusher. With all the guys that they drafted last year, defensive tackle, bringing back Jonathan Hankins, and all of the moves that they made, I just don't see Quinnen Williams being the guy for the Raiders at 4. But, man, is he a talent or what? Anyway, moving right along. Once again, Ricky L, man, really appreciate the super chat. Corey Fitterman says, I really love the signing of Landon Collins, as do I and probably most Redskins fans out there. I talked about him on the Redskins free agency video I did last week, and how he was my #1 target for the Redskins in free agency, and the Redskins checked him off of that box. So I love that move. JP says, Anthony Barr surprisingly went to the Jets. They're definitely building something in New York. Got a lot of money to burn. If they can also get CJ Mosley, they could really be turning that defense, like you said, into something. They could really be building something, because they got the Ohio State linebacker that is playing his ass off out there. They've got a lot of young pieces. They got the safety, Jamal Adams out of LSU. They got the safety out of Florida. They got a lot of young pieces. They got Trumaine Johnson in free agency. If they can get some pass rush, that's going to make Trumaine Johnson look that much better. They got some stuff that they're building in New York, definitely, for sure. JP says, besides Mosley, is there anybody else that we could land? I talked about the free agents on the free agency video, the guys that I would target if I'm the Redskins. Again, I can't see the Redskins being overly active in free agency. Again, they're going to have to do something at quarterback, whether it be via draft or trade. Again, Colt McCoy and Case Keenum are on the roster right now. I still contend that they're going to do something in the draft. I don't think they're going after Rosen necessarily, but I could be wrong. But I do think the Redskins are going to be looking for more pieces, primarily on the defensive side. I think a lot of the damage done in free agency is going to be on the defensive side of the football. And I think they're going to try to target some more help defensively. I think they're going with the approach that we need to build this team up defensively to give us a shot while we still figure out how we're going to use some of our resources and what direction we're going to go in offensively with no Alex Smith. So I think they're just kind of focused on trying to make the defense as good as possible. So I think I'm looking at defense, but you never know, man. I didn't expect them to spend what they did. And again, the deal looks very favorable. And I told you earlier when we talked about Landon that Eric was going to make those numbers dance. So I wasn't worried about the contract. I told you it looks good. 6 years, 84, looks like a lot. Trust me, Eric's going to make those numbers dance. Dance, I said. And what did he do? He did what Eric does. Eric asked for president. Nick Riley says, I don't like the fact that the Jets want to use Anthony Barr as an edge rusher, going back to what he did at UCLA, almost like he's a rookie all over again. Look, if you can rush, you can rush. I think he wants to rush. Last year, the Vikings had this man chasing the cheese. Every week I looked up, Anthony Barr was running after somebody's athletically gifted tight end, or hell, even worse, this man was in the slot getting smoked by receivers 20 yards down the field. Poor Anthony Barr. I felt bad for him. He was like, why can't I just rush? Now he's going to get a chance to do so. NBA Report 27 says, y'all donate $1 to Louie T, man. Hey, every bit helps. I'll take it all. Any and all donations. Don't matter how big or how small. I take and love them all, as I've told you many times before. Rodney Ray says, the funny thing about the Collins deal, $84 million for 6 years, $14 million per, only $42 million guaranteed. He says it's similar to the Tyrann Mathieu deal, 3 years, $42 million, 14 per, but the Redskins overpaid. Again, like I said, you're going to hear that very often, but if you look at the granular details of this deal, you'll see that the deal isn't that dissimilar from the deal that Tyrann Mathieu got in Kansas City. So, again, I'll overpay for a 25-year-old going into the prime of his career. Michael Strahan sent out a tweet that said he's disappointed in the Giants for not at least franchise tagging Landon Collins to try to work out a long-term deal. He said Landon Collins plays hard. He plays the right way. He's a great football player. And he said, thank you for making this Giants OG proud. Go have yourself a career. So if Strahan's saying that about a guy that's leaving, that tells you all you need to know about the character and the football player we're getting in Landon Collins. I feel good about it. You're not going to make me feel bad. I already said, you're not going to make me feel bad about Landon Collins on the roster. You're not. Moving on. The Wholesome One Holloway says, what's good, Lou? Always checking in on you and your content. Hey, y'all check out my man, the U Family, on YouTube. He does hurricane videos. I'm going to check out your channel too, bro, because I want to see what you over there doing. I'm interested in what your hurricanes are doing, and what direction y'all going to go in now. No more Mark Richt. I know you got another U alum as the head coach. And so I want to see what direction. I love when Miami's good. 2 years ago was fun with the turnover chain, and you guys were a game away from being in the playoffs. I like when Miami's good, so I want to check your channel out. Anyway, he says, you and your content, always checking in on you and your content. This free agency is wild. Where do you see Sue going? Would love him in Baltimore. I don't know, man. That's a really good question, because Sue's not going back to Los Angeles with the Rams. I can tell you that. And when he wants to play, he's still a dominant force. I thought that playoff stretch of Dallas and against the Saints, he was dominant in those 2 games. And if that's any indication of what's still left with Sue, he's still getting a damn good football player. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I'm anxious to see what happens with him. Could he land in Baltimore? Definitely. I don't know where he's going to land, though, honestly speaking. Nick Riley says, my man Nick at Night says, he says he has to get a lot better with his hands and swatting and swiping. I wish him nothing but the best, though. Just don't like the move. I told you his hands weren't A1 coming out of college. He didn't have any secondary moves. It was just speed, which, again, can win in this league. And he may get better. He may be able to refine his moves, and he may get better, and he may become a good pass rusher. We'll see what happens with him in New York with the Jets. NBA Report 27 says, who else should the Redskins get next? Talked about the Redskins in free agency and guys that I thought they should target. So check out that video. There are a number of guys that the Redskins that I thought the Redskins should be interested in. They're probably gone by now. I mean, this free agency has been crazy. I mean, it seems like everybody is out trying to get theirs, and guys are just being snatched up left and right. And so I don't really think that, you know, some of the lower level guys that even I was looking at, I told you that I was interested in I'm still interested in edge rusher help, because Preston Smith, we haven't heard anything yet. I still believe Preston Smith ends up a New York Jet or something like that, a Green Bay Packer. You know, I don't see the Redskins getting him back. They need some help at edge rusher. That's why I turn my attention to. You know, there's some guys out there that are intriguing that won't cost you a bunch. So we'll see what happens. The Wholesome One Holloway says, and also send some Redskins brothers and sisters to my channel, the Wholesome One, to get the best content on YouTube when it comes to the U. And I just talked about that. So the name of his channel is The Wholesome One. So y'all check him out. He said, got the knowledge and content on my Miami Hurricanes. I'm going to definitely check you out, bro. As I just mentioned, for sure. Y'all also do the same. Cali says, just joined the stream. What do you think of the Raiders getting LaMarcus Joyner? I talked about that already. But I love the move of Joyner going to the Raiders. Gives them some flexibility in their secondary with a guy that can play single high, a guy that can also come down, be a physical presence. Even though he's diminutive, don't let that fool you. LaMarcus Joyner will come up and hit you in your mouth. And he also can play over the slot too. So there's a lot of things LaMarcus Joyner does well, and he's going to be a good addition to this Raiders football team. Reese says, I'm worried, Lou. We lost two top contributors, DeSean Jackson. Hey, look, you lost Humphreys. You lost Quan Alexander. Now you lose DeSean Jackson. Look, things may get worse before they get better in Tampa. All I can tell you is trust in Bruce Arians. That's all I can tell you. Trust in Bruce Arians and that things will work out. I don't know how it's going to go, but just trust Bruce Arians. That's all I can tell you. I really wanted DeSean to stay in Tampa with you guys, though. That would have been a great help for your offense with Bruce Arians getting with Jameis Winston and refining his game. DeSean was going to be a monster in that offense, and now he's not. So, Muhammad Hersey says, should the Redskins try and trade for Josh Rosen, and what would you offer if you were the GM? I've told you this already. A player in anything in life in general is only worth what someone is willing to give up. What would I be willing to give up for Josh Rosen? It all depends. I'd be willing to give up a second-round pick for Rosen. I don't want to give up 15 for him. That's just me. If the Redskins gave up 15 for him, would I be mad? No, I wouldn't be upset. Because if they identify him as the next franchise quarterback of the organization, I was high on Josh Rosen last year. And because of the season he had in Arizona, I'm not changing my stance on him. I like Drew Lock better than him this year, and I know some people disagree with that. If you put Rosen, and you forget about what he did in Arizona last year, and you just put his UCLA tape, his UCLA tape, up against that of Drew Lock, I'm taking Drew Lock. Drew Lock's healthier. Drew Lock is, to me, a better thrower of the deep ball. I think Rosen's mechanics are much better, but I think that Drew Lock is a better athlete. He's just all around better to me. And so I want Lock. You know how I feel, but Drew Lock isn't going to be around at 15. I already said that. So I've already removed that from my thought process. I wouldn't be opposed to them trading 15, but if you ask me what I would be willing to give up, I'd give up a second-round pick for him. I know I've heard Kurt Warner say I wouldn't give up anything more than a third for him, and Kirk is in Arizona. So if Kurt Warner is saying, hey, I wouldn't give up more than a third, that holds some weight. But again, it's what some team is willing to give up. I'd be willing to give up a second-round pick for him. I really would. But that's just me. And yes, I think the Redskins should still try to trade for Rosen. They need to keep all their quarterback options open. FBG Tony says, who do you think the Skins need to cut to get CJ? Also, would Jordan Hicks be a fit if we can't get CJ? I think Jordan Hicks would be a nice consolation prize. The thing that worries me with Jordan Hicks is the injury history. He can't stay healthy for the life of him. But if Jordan Hicks is healthy, he's a good football player and one that would fit in the Redskins defense. Ricky L says, ready to hear Wentz goes deep to DeSean Jackson for a touchdown. I don't want to hear Merrill Reese talking about a bomb to D-Jax, but it's going to happen. Look, Wentz, and a lot of people forget how good Wentz is. Everybody kind of got caught up on the Nicholas Foles train. Wentz was an MVP candidate in 17 before the injury. Like, people forget this. He was the one that started that whole run. And he's going to be a problem with D-Jax. I'm not looking forward to that at all. Captain Spartan says, I'm only upset my Steelers let Jesse James go. We won the A.B. trade. You're going to keep trying to somehow convince people you didn't win it. You didn't win a damn thing there. You didn't win. He said, trust me. Remember when I told you we lose to the Dolphins, Jags, and Raiders? You did tell me that. You said draft Josh Dobbs, Connor Rudolph, and T.J. Watt. You've been right with your Steelers on a lot of things, and you're not right on this one, though. You didn't win this trade. The only thing I can say is that it had to be done, or did it? I don't know how I feel about that. This man pretty much put a gun. You allowed a man that was under contract to put a gun to your head. I have a problem with that. NBA report says, what pass rushers should the Redskins go and get? If it's not in the draft, primarily, I would look. This is a deep draft class for pass rushers. So edge rusher, I'd really want to go in the draft. But if you could get a Shane Ray for next to nothing at the bottom of the market, why not? Why not take a stab at him? You know what I mean? There are guys that are definitely available via free agency from a pass rushing standpoint. Zadarius Smith is going to command, I think, too much money for the Redskins. But I told you that I wouldn't mind a Dante Fowler Jr. He's off the market. I wouldn't mind a Shane Ray. I think Preston Smith, I wouldn't mind having Preston Smith back. But those are really it in free agency. I don't really want anything else out there. So I really think it's going to come down to Shane Ray or Preston Smith coming back. I don't think Zadarius Smith wouldn't be a bad option. I think he's a better version of Preston Smith. But we'll see. As I said, I'd much rather get a young guy in the draft. That's, to be honest, unless I'd like to kick the tires on Shane Ray. I don't have a problem with kicking the tires on Shane Ray, see what's there. But I prefer to get something young in the draft, to be honest. Rodney Ray says, Landon Collins' cap hit is just $4 million this year, meaning they still can go and get someone like a Mosley before releasing players to create more cap space. Exactly. Exactly. And I told you that Eric Schaefer would make the numbers dance. So I told you when the deal was made, I never am worried with the numbers. I'm never worried about the numbers. We got the best capologist in the league. Eric Schaefer is undefeated when it comes to cap numbers. So I wasn't worried. Greg Brewer says, Louie T is the man. Stay down for yours, brother. Hey, man, I really appreciate that, Greg. GT Venom says, what do you think of Jawan James to Denver? The Broncos need some help at tackle. They've been trying to find the right combination out there. Garrett Bowles still hit or miss with him. They could use some help at tackle. They've got a number of different things going on. But Joe Flacco, if you're going to have Flacco back there, you better protect him. or else Flacco will turn it over. So Juwan James is solid. I mean, he's not a needle mover, but you haven't had really good tackle play out there consistently in Denver for quite some time. So I think he would be an upgrade over what you've been doing. But we'll see. That tackle market is going to drop rather quickly. So if you're looking at a guy like Juwan James, you got to go and move quickly. As you can see, guys are getting broken off. So Reese says, apparently the Pats were hot on the trail of Adam Humphries. It already stings, but that would have been even worse. And he's white, so you know the Patriots wanted him bad. And he would have been a hell of a upgrade for them over a Danny Amendola type. You know what I mean? He would have been the next Danny Amendola for them. You know, he would have been a perfect fit. I'm just like you. I'm glad he didn't land in New England. That would have been a problem for years to come. Meest 703 says, should the Skins cut CT to keep AP? No. Two different skill sets. If you ask me, Geis and AP are the same guy. Again, that's relatively speaking. We know what AD is. He's a Hall of Fame back. We don't know what Geis is, but if you're talking about types of runners, at this point of AD's career, I think Geis and AD are comparable runners. CT does something totally different for us. He's one of the better third down backs in the league. He can catch it out of the backfield. He's a great pass protector. There's so much that he brings to the table. No, and he's much younger. Does have a little bit of an injury history, but he's our guy. He's homegrown product. No way do you cut ties with CT whatsoever. Not even up for debate. The 20th Mike says, good defenses do win championships. Boring games coming up, but I'll take it. Then a bunch of L's in terms of the Redskins. Nick at Night says, every time I click on you, the screen goes up. I don't know why this keeps happening to me. Let's see. Nick Riley says, why in the hell did Devin Funches, he said, what in the hell did Devin Funches do to deserve 13 mil, bro? Talk about, look, man, I don't know what happened in the game where prove it deals ballooned from 5 million to 13 million. I don't know. But I can tell you this. All jokes aside, Funches in Indy is an upgrade over any number 2 receiver. And I told you, they got 22 twos in Indy. He's an upgrade over all of the number 2 receivers that they have. All right, so he immediately goes in, and he's the second best receiver on their roster. So, but I, like you, were like 13 mil for Devin Funches for 1 year. But hey, maybe that's the going rate for a guy like Funches. I don't know. And let's not act like Devin Funches is trash. As I said earlier, he's not trash. Don't try to act as if this man can't play ball. He's just not. He's not elite. 13 million for 1 year seems like something you give for a guy that you think has the potential to be elite. But again, the market is ever changing in the NFL. The landscape is ever changing. The salary cap is ever changing. You got money to spend, why not? The Colts got money to spend, why not? I ain't mad at it. JP says the Skins are reportedly speaking to CJ Mosley on a deal per NFL Network. Again, the Jets and the Redskins seem to be the two teams that are hot on his trail. We'll see if, what happens there. David Thomas says, so getting Landon Collins makes us better than, I don't know what you're saying there. Maybe 6-10, I guess is what you're trying to say. I told you we're still 6-10. That hasn't changed. We still don't have a legit quarterback. Colt McCoy is a 6-10 quarterback. Case Keenum is a 6-10 quarterback. We still don't have the quarterback to make us better. We still don't have the pieces around that quarterback to make him better on offense. Defensively, we're trying to get to a point where we're going to give that quarterback and whomever he's getting the football to a chance to be successful, but we're still not there yet. Brown Shoe T2 says the Bengals just made me throw up by signing Bobby friggin' Hart to a 3-year, $21 million deal. Look, I already said I said my piece. The man is absolute garbage juice. The fact that the Bengals thought it was a good idea to spend $21 million on him, they need to wash their face and get their mind right. But again, I'm happy for Bobby Hart. If you can pull the wool over somebody's eyes and get them to pay you $21 million over 3 years, you have done something right. I don't know what. I know it ain't playing tackle in this league, but you've done something right. Good for you. David Thomas says, so the Landon Collins deal makes the Redskins better than 6-10. Okay, that's what you were trying to say. I thought that's what you were trying to say. No, I don't feel that way. Not yet. Reese says, I'm excited for Chris Godwin, Lou. He has a chance to prove he can be a quality receiver in this league. You've been high on Chris Godwin. You said you guys were going to draft him, and he looked good last season when healthy. NBA report says, I would like to get another corner and cut Norman like a Darby. Darby's coming off of an injury. I like Darby. I don't love Darby. I'd much rather keep Norman and draft a young corner if we were going that route. I know we got a lot of young guys, and remember, I don't expect us to do. We really need a nickel. All right, I'm cool with Norman. If we get a pass rush, I swear to you, Norman will be much better than he's played. We don't have an elite pass rush, and we're asking Norman to do some things that you really shouldn't ask him to do. But I digress. You get Norman back, you get Dunny back. They like Adonis Alexander. You got some young corners out there, Greg Stroman, that, baptism by fire last year. I just want to see these young guys get more opportunities. We need a nickel, though. Fabian Moreau, don't forget about Fab Moreau. We just need a nickel. That's why losing Kendall Fuller hurt so much. And there were rumors that the Redskins were going to kick him outside. I don't know. If it wasn't broke, don't fix it. He's a better nickel corner than me. Anyway, I digress. Reese says, Lou, I'm tired of things getting worse. I'm losing patience. We hired BA to win now. I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do anymore. Just trust BA, okay? That's all I can tell you to do. Just trust BA. JP says, Terrell Suggs is a Cardinal after spending 16 of his entire 16-year career in B-More. Do you think he has anything left? I talked about that earlier. I do think he has something left. NBA report says, should the Redskins check out Parker if Miami cuts him? Absolutely. I'm a big Devontae Parker fan. I remember I wanted him at the trade deadline. The Dolphins decided not to trade him. So you know how I feel about that. Colts fan says, thoughts on Funchess signing with my Colts? I've already talked about it twice now, but I don't have a problem with it. I thought 13 was a little steep for 1 year for Devin Funchess, but he automatically comes in and is your second best receiver. And he gives Andrew Luck something he really hasn't had in Indy since getting there, and that's a legitimate target with size. That's not a tight end. I think Funchess is going to be good in Indy. I really do. Colt said we needed a big body dude, and you just pretty much said what I said. Ricky L says, by the way, during this live stream, Denver signed Jawan James to a 4-year, $52 million deal. Thank you. So he does end up in Denver. I told you, if you wanted Jawan James, you need to act fast because this tackle market is drying up rather quickly. Think he might actually be an upgrade over what they currently have in Denver. Make sure you like the video. Captain Spartan says, Lou, you said I was wrong when I told you we would draft Mason Rudolph, Josh Dobbs, and James Conner, and that Juju, I didn't think Juju would be a stud. So you were right there. I don't remember telling you were wrong about Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs. I probably didn't think Dobbs was going to Pittsburgh. And he said, and that we would lose to the Raiders and Dolphins. When will you listen? Hey, you're wrong about this, but you've been right about your Steelers, and I've given you credit for being right about your Steelers. And that's what I love about fans of other teams. You know your team better than anybody else. But there is no way you can convince me that taking a $21.2 million cap hit, giving up the best receiver in football, still playing at a very high level, and essentially getting back peanuts in the form of a 3rd and a 5th round pick is winning a trade here. I don't see that. I'm sorry. I don't. Sarah Small says, who are the Colts getting? The Colts need to be extremely busy. You got a lot of money to dish out. I don't know what you're going to do. I thought you would be hot on the pursuit of a guy like Tyrell Williams, the receiver out of Los Angeles with the Chargers. He, to me, would have fit in well. Maybe you're not done at receiver. Maybe you're not done overhauling the receiver position, but You got Funches on a 1-year deal. It'll be interesting to see what you do. You've already inked Margus Hunt on a 2-year deal to stay in Indy. I thought he had a really good season for you. So we'll see. You've got a ton of money, and I think you can upgrade the talent level on your roster. So we'll see what you decide to do. Christmas 365 says, when is the draft this year? It's April 26th through the 28th, if I'm not mistaken. Colts fan says, I wanted Landon Collins, but at that price, yikes, Chris B winning free agency again. Reese says, I don't know why the Redskins should pack it in for next season. You guys have a good defense. You can run the ball when you want to. If Case Keenum can be stable, I think you'll be all right. You're assuming, which is a mistake, that Case Keenum is going to be the Redskins starter. I don't think he's beating out Colt McCoy, and the Redskins are done with their quarterback position. I think they're going to do something else. You're assuming that Case Keenum – now, eventually Case Keenum's going to get in because Colt McCoy, I think, is going to be the Redskins starter this year, and he's going to get hurt at some point. So Keenum's going to get a chance to play. But, again, I just don't see how the Redskins end up being a good team unless they catch lightning in a bottle. Everything goes their way. The ball has to bounce their way. They got to force turnovers. Pretty much the formula that we had going with Alex Smith at quarterback. Don't turn it over, play great defense, force turnovers, run the football, win games. Low scoring, and that's how you win with the way that the roster is going to be set up. The 20th Mike says, isn't $84 million a little much for what he's actually worth? Not really, not if you look at the details of the contract. But again, I don't mind paying for a guy in the prime of his career that plays at the level that Landon Collins does. DMV fan says, I know you say that Case Keenum is a 6-10 QB, but really I think he has the potential to be way worse. That's a fact too. You know, if the defense isn't good, if there is no run game, if the O-line is banged up, if the receivers look anything like they did last year, yeah, he could be way worse. Jonathan Lynch says, who do you think the Redskins will replace Crowder with? I think Trey Quinn. I think it's an in-house answer. I think the answer is Trey Quinn in the slot in 2019 and potentially beyond. I don't think they're really worried about the slot necessarily. If Trey Quinn is healthy, I think they like Trey Quinn. Even Richardson could play inside as a slot guy. I think they feel fine about the slot. I think where they're concerned is out wide. They don't have enough weapons outside in Washington. I think that's what they're really concerned with. NBA report says Luck made Ebron look good. Funches next. Question mark. Maybe. Maybe. I told you last year when the Colts signed Eazy-E, I said easily one of the best low-key signings of free agency last year. And look what happened. I told you Eazy-E would be a great target for Luck last year. And he was. And you know what? Funches could be next. Robert Contreras says, where is Bell going? Come to Oakland, baby. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes because the consensus initially was, oh, he's going to the Jets. They got a bunch of money, but you're hearing reports that the Jets internally are split on Le'Veon Bell and should they pay L.Bell. And, you know, the Raiders have emerged as a team that could potentially look for his services. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. You're hearing trade rumors about Odell potentially to the 49ers, and there's so much stuff left to be unsettled or left to be settled in free agency. It'll be interesting to see how everything goes. Bjorn Charlie says, Steelers are a trash organization. Laughing my ass off. Who in the hell lets their best two skills players leave because you treated them like shit? Hey, the Le'Veon Bell situation, they didn't treat him like shit. They just didn't want to pay him. Now, the Antonio Brown situation, he was just as much at fault as the rest of the organization was. No one was blameless in that situation. Ben was to blame. So was Mike Tomlin. So was the Steelers organization for sweeping things under the rug. So was Antonio Brown for acting childish and like an ass. Everybody had some blame in that situation, and it is what it is. JP says, you said that Crowder left, or was it time for him to get a new start? You said that Crowder left, or it was time for him to get a new start? I would have loved to have seen Crowder stay. I was frustrated with him last year, and I think I said I was ready for him to go. He could carry his ass. I think it was my exact words. But that was just me being frustrated because he was injured and we just needed a receiver out there, and it just seemed like he would never get healthy. But make no mistake about it, Jamison Crowder was the best we had at receiver. And it wasn't even close. And so I would have loved to have seen him stay, but it was probably time for him to go. You know, the Redskins weren't going to pony up what the Jets ultimately did for Jamison Crowder. And so it was probably time for him to go. But I'm not sad that he's gone. It would have been nice if he could have stayed, but I knew the writing was on the wall. I knew he was going to go. Ricky L says, Matt Ryan makes 3B get wasted like the Lakers make Nick get wasted. Hey, yeah, Nick be going in on the Lakers on Twitter, for sure. Colts fan says, could my Colts be in on Justin Houston? I would love a veteran pass rusher. Again, not out of the realm of possibility. It just seems like Justin Houston is a New England Patriot, doesn't it? I mean, they're going to let Trey Flowers walk. It just seems like Justin Houston will revitalize his career in New England, and the rest is history. That just seems like a match made in heaven, but we'll see. Reed says, the Bucs are talking to Deone Buchanan, Lou. Yep, that would be your replacement for Quan Alexander. Undersized inside linebacker that plays with a physical edge. He's not Quan Alexander, but he'd be a solid replacement. Bjorn Charlie says, that's like the Saints losing Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Laughing my ass off. Yeah, it's like that pretty much. Yeah, that would be a comparable loss. Ronaldo Gonzalez says, you getting a Collins jersey? Nah, I don't get jerseys anymore. And as I told you, I'm not, until the Redskins do one of two things. Either fire Bruce Allen and make wholesale changes, or win. I'm not buying any more Redskins garb. I'm not buying any more Redskin paraphernalia. I'm not putting any more money in the pocket of one Daniel M. Snyder until shit changes. Either you win some games and make us proud to be Redskins fans, or get rid of the guys that are stopping us from improving and winning games. Let's make the Redskins great again. And until we do that, I'm not buying anything. Colts fan says, Odell is actually getting traded. If so, Gettleman is so trash. Look, it's been thrown out there. It doesn't mean that the Giants are actually considering it. I'm just hearing reports. NBA report says, people sleeping on Coleman. He had a good running back. Remember, I said this. He's a good running back. I told you Tevin Coleman on my podcast, to me, is severely underrated. If I'm the Indianapolis Colts, Tevin Coleman would have been the first guy on my list. I like what you have at running back. And Coleman would be a perfect, I think the absolute perfect addition to a running back group that is dying for a home run threat type of back at the top of that list. I like, and I know you got Marlon Mack, and I like Marlon Mack, and we saw Marlon Mack tear it up late in the season and into the postseason. I think that adding another guy in there along with Wilkins, you have three backs like that, because Mack is going to get hurt. Marlon Mack is going to miss games. That's where Tevin Coleman would come in. But again, I don't know how much you're looking to spend on Tevin Coleman. But again, that's just how I feel. But we'll see. Crazy K says Bell is garbage. If you're talking about Le'Veon Bell, we not watching the same thing. BE says, thoughts on Suggs to Arizona. I talked about that already. I like the move, and I really wanted him to go back to Baltimore, but I said if they could use him like the Panthers used J. Pep late in his career the last couple of years, you could extend this man's career another 2 years, and he could be a very viable edge rusher for you in obvious passing situations. So that's how I feel about that. Nick Riley says, swear to God, Lou, only way to compare my Lakers to football is the Vikings O-line with pure booty hole. 20th Mike says, Case Keenum is coming to Washington for his retirement since we are going to, we are the quarterback, called the quarterback killers. Feels like going in circles with all these deals like last year with Alex. Again, I'm looking for a definitive answer at quarterback. Alex Smith was not that for me. Case Keenum is not that for me. Colt McCoy is not that for me. So until we get a definitive answer at quarterback, we're going to continue to run in circles. That's what happens in this league when you don't have a quarterback. You run in circles. That's why you always see teams chasing quarterbacks. BE says, Bucks, Giants, and Raiders need to leave Golden and Dion the hell alone. I want the Cards to re-sign them. And so he wants Marcus Golden, edge rusher, and Dion Buchanan, linebacker, back. You better act fast, man. Teams are shelling out this bread in free agency. Colts fan says, I'm terrified of BDN coming to Jacksonville. Hey, look, man. Nicholas Foles. Y'all know what time it is. We'll see what he does. Let's see. Jump Speed says, Louie T. What's going on, Jump Speed? Reese says, I've always liked Quan, but I won't pretend like he didn't drive me nuts and missing tackles in the backfield and blowing assignments at times. Loved his mentality, though. Colts fan says, Lou, I disagree. Our running back core of Mack, Hines, and Wilkins is legit. I look at Hines as more of a slot receiver out of the backfield. I don't look at him as that running back. I look at him as like a third down back that you can use as a Swiss Army knife. Similar to the Bears with Tariq Cohen. You can do some things with Hines. I think you need another running back. Like, I like Wilkins. I love Wilkins. You know how I feel about Jordan Wilkins. I told you Mack is the real deal. And I think that's a nice core. But if you add Coleman to that mix, because I feel like you can book Mack on 3 to 6 games a year he's going to miss. With a hamstring, with a contusion. He's going to miss some games. I do like your running backs, though. But I think Coleman would be that cherry on top. But maybe he's a little too expensive of a cherry to put on top. But I understand where you're coming from. I do. Halim Tonic says, what do you think about AP going to the Redskins? And are you going to keep him? And he says, where do you think Clay Matthews is going to land? Clay Matthews is washed. I don't know where he's going to end up. It's got to be a team that I think has talent and is in win now mode. I can't see Clay Matthews going somewhere where you're trying to build with a young nucleus. He just doesn't fit. As far as AD is concerned, I'm open to keeping him, but if we lose him, I wouldn't be hurt. It wouldn't make me a difference either way. Love what he did for us last year. Would love to have him back, but I'm anxious to also see what we have in the young fella. So I'd love to create carries for him, but with the way the running back position is set up, if you told me AD was getting 14 carries, Geis was getting 12 carries, and Chris Thompson was touching it 8 times, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I really want to see what Geis has. In order to really see what he has, you probably needed to clear the way for him. And I think AD coming back would kind of murky up the backfield, so to speak. NBA report says he kind of mirrored Bell, but fast and a little loose. I don't think he mirrors Bell. There's no one that has the hesitation, start and stop like Bell. He's much faster than Le'Veon Bell, but I just like him a lot. I think he's very underrated, man. Reese says the draft is the 25th through the 27th this year, Lou. Thank you. I appreciate that. I knew it was somewhere in that vicinity. Reese says we've been extremely active in free agency recently. Maybe that has been a part of the problem. Maybe, there's something to be said about continuity and a team being able to gel together. So, Colts fan says Matthew is going to be a bust in Kansas City. He's just not the same player. He played well for Houston last year. Also, he says, Lou, I'm laughing on how bad the Texans secondary is. They lost a lot of pieces. They lost one of their corners. And Kareem Jackson, they lost one of their safeties, and Tyrann Mathieu. They got to make some improvements. But remember, they love their second-year safety, Justin Reed, who had a stellar season for them. They're going to try to build around him in that secondary. And so look for them to make some moves to try to improve it via the draft. Colts fan also says, just lost everybody except Joseph. Ricky L says, Hines equals broke man's version of Sproles. I think he's more, maybe Sproles is a little bit more dynamic to me than that of Nyheim Hines, but I think Hines is more of, let's see if I can find a comp for him. I can't really think of one right now. I guess I'd take that. He's not as dynamic as Sproles, though. Not, Sproles takes those little short, choppy steps. That's not what Nyheim Hines does, but they have similar games. You can do some of the same things with them. LSU Superfan says, do you think the Saints should pay Ingram or go after a cheaper, younger player in the draft? I'm always about cheaper, younger. And the Saints don't have a lot of money. I think Ingram's going to end up going elsewhere, but there are so many young backs that could do what Ingram did in that offense and do it maybe even better than Ingram did. I think if I'm the Saints, I'm just going to allow some good football players to fall to me in the draft. Being that you don't have a first-round pick, there'll be some good options sitting there for you in the second round of this draft at the running back position. Reese says, I don't remember a time when Frank Gore wasn't playing. That's why he's forever Frank. John Perez says, where is Le'Veon Bell most likely going to land? Is there any free agent veterans you think could retire? Well, Josh McCown sent out a tweet today, a message pretty much saying that he wants to spend time with his family and he's still mulling over his decision to come back. So we'll see what he decides to do. But other than that, I don't know. Nick Riley says, thank you, Lou. I have this argument with dumbass Packers fan all the time. This man, Clay Matthews, been washed for about 2 or 3 years now. Yeah, he's been on the downside of his career. Big time, big time, big time. Me703 says, I hear you on CT being a different bat, but he never gets to be that bat due to being hurt. What we saw from CT in 2016 and the first half of 2017 before he got injured, that's what he can be for us. And I'm confident that he's going to get back to that. So Alex didn't get him the ball like Kirk did. You got to find a quarterback that knows how to utilize him in order to have CT be the guy that he was when Kirk was there. So I want CT, definitely, for sure. End of discussion. Reese says, it's 2050. Frank Gore signs a 1-year deal to return for his 48th season. Frank is never going away, man. Helene Tonic says, what do you think of Cam Sims returning? Hey, more guys to throw at the dartboard at the receiver position. I'm not as high on Cam Sims as everyone else is, but the dude has talent. There's no denying that. But he couldn't get on the field at Alabama. We'll see what happens. Reese says, I heard that Green Bay wants Ingram. That would be a nice fit. It would be a nice fit. Junior 13 says, I know this session is about free agency, but man, I hate Bruce Allen. We are close, though. Shaking my head. You are not alone, Junior. You are not alone. I don't hate Bruce Allen. I don't hate anybody. I strongly dislike Bruce Allen, though. I hate him as a team president, though. Colts fan says, Lou, I can't help but think of Josh Norman when the Skins signed Collins. Both will be busts. Man, the venom that is coming the way of my guy. Yes, he's my guy now. He's a Redskin. And I liked him since he came out of Alabama. But anyway, McLovin says, how good is Preston Smith? Heard my Packers want to sign him. You're going to like Preston, man. To me, he's an upgrade over the edge rusher you guys signed to an extension about Nick Perry. He's an upgrade over Nick Perry. The production doesn't say it, but he gets pressure on the quarterback. And eventually those pressures are going to turn into sacks. He's a really quality run defender. And most of all, unlike Nick Perry and some of the other guys on your team, he doesn't get hurt. He is as durable as the day is long. And so you'll like Preston Smith. He's not elite by any stretch of the imagination. He's not elite. So don't, if you're looking for a 12.5 sack guy, wrong player. If you're looking for a quality football player that can get you anywhere from 6.5 to 10.5 sacks in any given season and stop the run consistently, Preston Smith's your guy. All right, guys. That's going to do it. We've been here over an hour and 30 minutes. And it's past midnight. And I'm getting hungry. Thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the Louie T Network. If you haven't already done so, make sure you check out the Louie T Network podcast. It's going to be a big episode coming up. A lot of free agency talk. And then we're going to turn our attention to the draft. And I told you free agency comes first, then the draft. And I've got to get in a position, once this move kind of gets settled, then I'll be able to really pump out the draft content. But in any event, thank you guys for joining me. This was fun, as it always is. And if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. More deals to come. We'll probably be back tomorrow doing more of this with more deals coming down the pipeline. But until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.